I'm Peggy O'Neill. Welcome to today's live learning. We're talking about what is cultural conditioning and how do I break free of it. So, again, I'm Peggy O'Neill, and like the founder, I created this Facebook group answering the call for the purpose of helping us know who we truly are, to answer that call, that nudging, that sense of, isn't there something more to life, something that I'm uniquely here to contribute or do or know maybe about myself? And so, first answering that call of knowing ourselves and that nagging sense that there's something else here, and then to find out what specifically that is that I'm here to uniquely express. So welcome. If you this is the first time we've been together. I've been coaching for about 30 years. I practiced law for 12, and so I bring coaching experience, life experience, practical experience to these ideas that have traditionally been called spiritual, but science has now caught up with the spiritual teachings. So now basically what we're talking about here is reality. And so it's to help us live reality as it actually is and not as we've been conditioned to believe that it is. And it's not wrong what we've been conditioned to, but we have the opportunity to know reality and then to live in alignment with that. And that will support us to actually be happier, more fulfilled, have more meaningful relationships, more meaningful work, and feel that sense of meaning and purpose in our lives. So, welcome to today's conversation. And if you're here live, please say hi so I know that you're here, and I'll say hi back. And if you have any questions or comments at any time, please post those. I will answer them. If you're watching this on replay, please put hashtag replay in the comments. I like knowing that you're here, of course. And if you have any questions, put those in there or comments, and I'll respond later. So thank you again for being here today. Let's dive in. What is cultural conditioning, and how do I break free of it? So let's look at first, why is this important to even talk about? Because if we don't understand cultural conditioning, kind of how it works, um, that we are conditioned by our culture, then it's going to have us, so to speak, rather than us having it. In other words, we're just going to be blind, oblivious to what we've taken on, thinking that's the way things are, that's how they should be, or that's just how it is around here. And so we want to be able to realize, wait, I've just been conditioned to believe all of that, so that I can then explore what's true for me. I don't mean the kind of what's going on in politics these days. I don't mean that kind of what's true for me, but I mean based on using fundamental principles, which we talk about all the time here. The things that are true from principles and teachings, and not just the truth I make up. I don't mean that kind of truth, but I mean as we know more fully who we truly are, then what is true for me about how to live that way, because that's part of cultural conditioning. One thing is cultural conditioning. We are born into a society, a culture. In any Western culture, I'm not real familiar with Eastern cultures, although I worked in Singapore and India and Hong Kong, so I was over there in those, but more in the westernized portions of those. So I'm not real familiar with Eastern cultures, but definitely in Western culture, we are born from the get-go into a culture that believes we're all separate from each other. A lot of separation in ourselves then is manifested because we believe we're separate from other beings. I heard the other day they were talking about teaching some kids something, and they used this phrase, we're going to arm our kids with this information. Right there, separation. So our language creates separation. That even creates a culture of war from the beginning, of little children thinking, I've got to arm myself. What is that? That's getting defensive. That's separating myself. That's getting ready for battle. What is arm myself? So when we start really being aware, paying attention to what we're thinking about, talking about, how we interact with people, then we can choose what aligns with the love and the peace and the happiness and fulfillment and the one being that I actually am, rather than automatically behaving the way other people do. Doesn't mean we won't behave automatically like other people do, but we'll be aware of these choices that we're making and whether they align with the way I want to uniquely express my understanding of the one being that I am. So, let's see, is there anything else I want to say about cultural conditioning? Um, and, different cultures have different conditioning. So in our culture, we we're born speaking English for the most part. Other countries, it's another language, other customs, other traditions. And so when we think of it that way, the same thing happens in families. Different families talk about different things. So we also have a family culture, community culture, religious culture, school cultures, and most of the time, well, when we're young, the Jesuits say, "Give me a child give me a child, when it's born, and let me keep it till the age of 7, and I'll tell you the measure of a man." It was still when they used that language, so a man or a woman, and because we absorb it like a sponge absorbs. The child is with their family or wherever they are, and they just absorb it. They just start repeating. It's like being programmed. Actually, I don't use that language very often because I don't like to use a mechanical an AI metaphor. However, in this case, it's actually very powerful because that's what happens. We just get programmed because we absorb it all, take it all in. So, however our parents treated each other, we unconsciously, except consciously because we wind up expressing it the way they did, we we're going to pretty much do what our parents did. So, or sometimes the opposite, but it's still then based on conditioning rather than our own individual expression. So I hope that's making sense about just why this is even important. It's so that, well, for one thing, so we can create the culture we really want rather than the one that's occurring right now. Most of us are not very happy with what's occurring in this culture. It doesn't have to be this way. So it's to really also understand, yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. It's just what people took on and keep doing and playing out because we just, without stepping back and reflecting, think this is how it is. And think about it, when we come in, of course, we don't remember when we came in, but if we watch little babies when they first come in, think about it. They're real open. They're aware of everything. They seem to be unconditionally loving. So in some way, they're just wide open, and they're present, and they're there for people, and they're there in the moment, and they're curious. They want to help, they want to participate, and so that's more. I mean, of course, they don't have a developed mind, but that's back to the cultural conditioning. It gets developed by just absorbing what's around them. But we can see our natural state really is that openness, that curiosity, that wanting to play and get along. And then I've probably used this here before, I've used it a lot in the praxis, that Jesus said some version of the people that are like children will get into heaven. So it doesn't mean heaven like another place, but being childlike in those ways, open, unconditional, allowing, accepting. And then, as we are that, then of course we're in heaven. Because now we're not resisting life. We're not resisting other people. We feel connected to other people. We're enjoying life. So that's what that actually meant. All right, so how does cultural conditioning hold us back? Well, you can probably already hear that from what I'm saying. So also because of cultural conditioning, and just historical conditioning, I mean, thousands and thousands of years ago, if we didn't fit in, blend in with the tribe, we got kicked out, we'd starve to death. So that still lingers here where it's not so prevalent. I mean, we could technically get kicked out of our family or tribe and go move to another part of the country in the United States or in many other places in the world. We could do that. However, that sort of reptilian sense that's been ingrained for us for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years is still with us, that we're afraid to be wrong. We're afraid to misstep, or we could get kicked out or fired, or somebody not like us. And so to start realizing how uh, challenging that is to step out of the norms or even question norms. Um, let's see. And then fear of the unknown. Well, what might happen if I do something different? Even something minor. So I'm not even talking about that you really would have to quit a job or anything, but to speak up in a meeting when others don't. Of course, speak up in a way that people can hear you. I don't mean like you're stepping on toes or something, but if you're not used to speaking up, or if people don't usually speak up in a meeting, then how do you go about that? We're afraid to move to the edge a little bit, um, or to quit a job and try something else. It's convenient. It's satisfying. We've gotten fairly complacent as a society because we're comfortable. So that's another way cultural conditioning holds us back. We get comfortable. We're doing what everybody else is doing. So it's kind of like, oh, well, they're doing it too. It must be okay, or it must be the way, instead of but listening to ourselves. Um, and we are worried about what other people think. That's natural, but it's to be aware of that. To know, oh, that's what's holding me back, all these components that I'm talking about. And also we use the same language. So when we like we're going to arm the children, or we've got to fight for this, or we've got to uh, yeah so we use the same language. It perpetuates the culture, whether it's just in my small family or the community or the world. Keeps the culture in place, how we use our language. So that's challenging too, to change the language, to like not talk about certain things like fighting and war and so on, using any language that has to do with that. And so then we have to stop and think, well, what would I say instead? How would I say this that speaks a more peaceful and loving or open language than a war language? So again, that's how it holds us back, because we're not aligning our language with how we really want to live in the world. So our language holds us back. So why is it so hard to break free? So that's part of it, but from cultural conditioning, because things will change. Things will change. And years ago, when I changed careers from practicing law to becoming a trainer for a human potential movement training, that's quite a career change. Some people thought I was nuts. The law firm I was working for thought I was nuts, and my family did, and other people were like cheering me on. Yeah, you're going for it, and I was satisfied with that decision. I never looked back. I would never thought, oh, I made the wrong decision. However, it took well over a year for my emotions, thoughts, and my energetic body to get aligned with being comfortable with it. It took over a year for my thoughts, emotions, and energetic being to line up with this decision that I knew was right for me. So when we get real uncomfortable, sometimes we think that discomfort means we're not supposed to be doing it. So that can help bring us back too, because it's uncomfortable. Things will change. Each of us is kind of like the thermostat in the room that we're in. We set it on 72. As we know, if it gets up to 74, it's going to cool back down to 72. Or if it gets down to 68, it's going to warm back up to 72. And we're like that. We're so used to how things are that if we change just a little bit, it feels very uncomfortable. Unless we get used to change, doing a lot of different things. But then we could get so used to change that might be inconsistent with what matters to us at some point. But if you haven't changed much in your life, then you might step out, do some things differently, so you can see how uncomfortable it is, and so that you can double check, oh, are you holding yourself back from something because of the possible discomfort? And maybe to stretch yourself a little bit so you can get more comfortable with discomfort, so that then you can open to more possibilities instead of being in the same way of being an environment or read a book that's way out there, and then from what you're used to reading or doing, and then just notice that discomfort with reading different kind of materials another way. Um, and we think, well, it must not be right for me because it's so uncomfortable. No, it just means it's different. And so, sometimes it does, of course, but sometimes if it's not really, like bungee jumping. I'm not going bungee jumping, so I'm not talking about that. Might that be good for me? It might be good for me. I'm not going to do it. I've done some other way out there stretchy things. That's too far for me. I'm not going to do it. I'm also not going to jump out of a plane. So I'm not talking about anything. I'm just talking about just a little bit. Try something different. Sit in a different chair when you're watching TV. You'll notice, oh wow, that's kind of uncomfortable to sit in a different chair, different posture. But that can be good to start letting yourself be more, because that'll help you be more open. Because if we get too conditioned to be how things are, then we can't even imagine something different. Then we're not even going to be able to pay attention to any other possibilities. Let's see. And so then how do we begin living the life that we're meant to live? Now, you might, if you're here, you're probably wondering if there's something else, or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here if you were totally comfortable with your life. So something, maybe you want to love more. Maybe you're thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Maybe you want to be different at work. Something is nudging you a little bit to be here. So how do you begin living the life you're meant to live? So you see this, oh wow, maybe I've just had this job and worked the way that I have because I've just been conditioned to do so. What else is possible? So how do I explore that? Well, you keep returning to your essential nature, as we've talked about quite often here, which is to, remind yourself, am I aware? Am I aware that I'm aware? Or do I know that I'm aware? And then sink back into that experience of knowing, it's just simply knowing. So, or awareness, sink back into that experience. And the more time you spend there, then, and you can do it while you're walking. It's not that you go meditate, you can. That helps too, because you spend more time there. And so what we want to be helping each other do here is to move what we normally pay attention to, activities, relationships, thoughts, emotions, feelings, move those more into the background and move our essential nature, this knowing, into the foreground. And as we do so, then we're going to hear things differently in the world. In fact, we're going to be more still, because our thoughts and emotions won't be running our lives, so we'll notice the space between thoughts and emotions. And that's where new ideas can come. That's where the nudges can come from. So, and they can be very nuanced. They can be very subtle. So, as you're exploring how to live the life that you're meant to live, you want to, somehow slow down, be still, a little more still, slow down a little bit. Remind yourself to go back to your essential nature, and then just either watch for, listen for, however you want to think about it. It can be very nuanced. So you could be eating dinner and then just have this nudge, like, oh, we've all had this kind of nudge, oh, I ought to call Sally. So that sort of thing, that it can be a slight brushing your teeth, you get this idea. And so pay attention to those. Some of them, of course, are your traditional thinking, and so that takes some time too to start sorting between them. Which ones are the nuanced nudges guiding you, and which ones are just historical thinking? But it's fun. It's fun to do this, to really start being able to listen for where you're really trying to take yourself. Let's see. Oh, and then another thing that's helpful is the more that you keep aligning your thoughts, your actions, your conversations, your relationships, your activities with your essential nature of love, peace, and happiness, that helps too, because you're being more peaceful, you're being less anxious, you're being less fearful, you're being less angry, whatever that is, because you're focusing more and more on who you truly are and lining life up to live as you live that way. And so then you're more able to observe those nuances, feel those nuances, and different people will come into your life, or you'll pay more attention to them because they'll be aligned with that experience that is becoming that you truly are, as you remove the veils and the habits that keep you from living that all the time. And when you're abiding as awareness, let's say you are, it's really not meditating. I use that word. You know, anyway, so we're not meditating. We're being with ourselves. So when you're being with yourself, you're abiding with the awareness that you are. Then ask that your divine design be revealed. Just ask. Reveal my divine design. You don't need to plead. You want to kind of be in that emotional state of a kind of a demand. You know, reveal my divine design, so the universe feels the clear message. Oh, this person really wants to know their divine design. So you don't want to be wimpy. You don't want to be beggy. You also don't want to be in a bad mood. You want it to align with the emotion that you would like your divine design to be, your divine life to be living. So, so you be in that emotional space, and then in a demanding, respectful way, ask. Ask. I ask that reveal my divine design to me, and give me guidance. And you might find some other words that fit you better than that, and that's fine. There aren't perfect words. It's unique for each of us. And again, pay attention to subtle nuances. You might have a subtle sense right after that, right after you ask that. And then, so as you can hear, paying attention is key. So really staying, not letting your thoughts and feelings keep you distracted all the time, but being present and noticing. Present and noticing. Okay, so are there any questions? Any questions? All right, so a brief review. You know, our cultural conditioning, it has us, we don't have it. So in other words, we're living the cultural conditioning until first we're aware of that, and then we question it. We start looking at, you know, does this really align with who I know I am and what I know about how the world is? And then we align with who we truly are. And then knowing that that the conditioning can hold us back, it can be uncomfortable to start guiding our own lives, and then to then invite and pay attention, invite guidance and pay attention to what it is that you, to the nuances that are being given to you. So as you know, I'm sure you've seen postings in the group and or in the emails. There's a praxis beginning June the 24th. It's a 12-week praxis. The wild ones out in the field, foundational praxis. The wild ones mean we're being wise. We're integrating it into all areas of our lives. We're liberating ourselves, like from today, our cultural conditioning that's inconsistent with how we want to live and who we are, and from beliefs and emotions that hold us back, so we can live the divine. That's the divine being that we are. So that is the praxis. 12 weeks, phenomenal experience. Incredible people are registering. Would love for you to join us, and it's the only time I'll be doing this 12-week praxis. So if you've had an inkling at all that you'd like to participate in the 12-week praxis, then I encourage you to be in touch with me, and let's talk and explore if it's appropriate for you. It's a no pressure conversation, because this is the kind of praxis that you've got to be ready to engage with. You've got to be ready to know who you are, and it kind of flips the world upside down for people. So I mean, it's a phenomenal experience, exciting. You know, all kinds of changes occur in people's lives, from writing books and relationships with children and loved ones, and it's an incredible experience that people have. And so, so you want to, so if it interests you to explore some of what we've talked about today, and to live as who you truly are, and to know it in all of your being, and then to explore what am I uniquely here to express, and how to express it in alignment with who you are, then I'll put the Calendly link for a conversation in the comments, and I invite you to have a conversation pretty soon, because we start next Friday, but there's still some spaces available, And but this is the only 12-week praxis, so please get in touch if you'd like to explore that. All right, thank you again for being here today, and I will see you next Thursday.